All right, and we are live. Welcome to the BrainDrive weekly development live stream. We do these calls every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern time to update on our development progress from the previous week and plan out the coming week. Our mission here at BrainDrive is to build a superior user-owned alternative to big tech AI systems. I'm Dave Waring, and I handle the operations side here at BrainDrive.
And I'm Dave Jones, and I handle the technical side of the house here.
Great. So as I've said, our mission is to build a superior user-owned alternative to big tech AI systems, and we're doing that with our MIT licensed uh, locally running AI system that you own, control, and benefit from. Instead of having to be a user of a big tech platform, you are an owner of your own AI platform. But it doesn't stop there. It's also about freedom, the freedom to build and modify your AI platform to be as unique as you are. With big tech AI platforms, you're limited to what they give you. We like to say here at BrainDrive that the only limit to what you can do with your BrainDrive is your imagination. And Dave has constructed a modular plugin based architecture where you can build and deploy a plugin on any GitHub and install it via one click here. And then he has built us a drag and drop page builder. Let's WYSIWYG, if you're familiar with website builders and those types of things, uh, that's what we're looking at here. So you can create these custom interfaces and even build things that go way beyond chat interfaces like games or really anything that you want to do from an AI powered standpoint. So that's our system. And that's how we plan on building that user owned alternative. And we have our doc site here with our roadmap. We have a 5 phase roadmap. You can take a look at that, and it shows you how you can get involved there. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dave to take us through the development progress from last week.
Okay, let's go ahead and start with sharing because that's going to be probably the most important thing for anybody. They probably won't care about anything else. Here's my copy. And the first thing I want to point out, compared to Dave's version and my version, is probably one of the things that we've strived for with BrainDrive. In the fact of, you notice on my menu system, while we have the similar components that are BrainDrive core, from there, my pages are very different than his pages. And there is no right or wrong answer. It's whatever you want to make it. There's nothing stopping you from doing any particular thing. It's really about your imagination, your skill level, or if you have people working with you, leveraging their skill level with your ideas. And in fact, that's with our Y Finder. That's what Dave's doing. Dave is taking his idea with somebody who has the technical skills, and they're creating a page that they envision. So that's kind of the belief of BrainDrive from when we started from the original concept to now, and we followed with it. But this is all about the RAG demo. So that's what I kind of named this one, and we're going to go from there. Currently, I do not have it installed because I thought it was important for us to go through the entire process so people can get a glimpse of really how easy we've tried to make this to be. So that we call it Katie, but the truth is,
All
somebody
right,
like my
and we are live.
Oh,
oh,
Welcome
sorry, hold
to
on
the
one second.
BrainDrive
that,
weekly
While that's
development live
happening.
stream. We do these calls every Monday at.
There we go.
yep.
Sorry about
No problem. Hey,
that.
it happened. It's a Monday, right? It's a Monday before
Yeah.
Christmas, no less. It's like I've been listening to my wife. I do not want to do meetings today. Say it's like apparently we're gonna have two at one time. So the idea was so that somebody with no technical skills could say, "Hey, I want to use a RAG. I want to chat with my documents," and they don't have to worry about the technical components. Really, it will come down to: do you have a link? You install it, and then you can start utilizing it. And we really want it to be that easy through the entire process. And then from there, you can learn, you can grow. There'll be videos, no doubt. And the moment I was playing with it this weekend, really for the first time, I got a taste of really some ideas in my own head. What could be done with this further on down the road? But initially, let's just go to how to install this. Um, I go into settings by accident, sorry. Go to plugin manager, go to install plugins. I am currently working in dev mode, so I basically use the local installer, which any developer can do. You can pass these on to people. You can utilize this functionality the way you want, or when we get to what I call live, Then it's all on GitHub for anybody to grab, see, fork, play, install, whatever you might imagine. So from here, all I simply do is drag and drop it into there. And the install process for these kind of plugins are broken down into two pieces. But basically, for anybody just needs to know, you just press install. 2 seconds later, the front end install aspects are complete. The back end services take a little bit longer. So to help people see what's going on behind the scenes, we do have a service installer as a background task. You just simply go there and say, hey, can I use RAG yet? And it'll just tell you, nope, I'm still running. Hold on a minute. This takes about 5 minutes for the entire process. And what it does is for the document chat and the document processor services, what it does, it creates a small environment for it to exist in. Then it clones the repos into that environment. Then it handles all the dependency installs, and then it starts up running for you. You don't have to do a single thing except for go get coffee, come back in 5 minutes, and it's done and ready for you. And that's basically what we're waiting on, which is kind of boring, I know. But hey, uh, when you
Yeah,
get,
so
yeah,
basically, we're talking about chat with documents here,
yep,
retrieval augmented generation RAG system.
mm-hmm,
And what we're looking at here is we're going to have a front end, which is the plugin that
yep,
Dave's installing. And then that plugin kicks off two back end services. The first is the actual back end of the RAG system, which is where the embedding database sits and the chunking and all that happens to take your documents and put them in that database. And that's ChromaDB, right,
yep,
Dave?
yes,
Um, and then you can choose your embedding model, et cetera. And then the other service is the document extraction. So taking that text and if you upload a PDF, getting it into a machine readable format, for example, and that uses dockling, right, Dave?
correct.
Yeah, and then that processes the documents so that the back end can chunk them up, embed them. He's going to have it where he'll show you that you can choose your embedding model. You can, really customize this, all the different settings and everything, to, really give you the freedom to do with it as you please. Because I think one of the things is the best strategy for your RAG setup for your chat with documents is going to be dependent on what you're actually trying to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we haven't quite extended into, okay, I have legal documents. I have a document full of images, or charts and such like that. So we will leverage into that eventually. This is
Yep.
for a what I would call a generic chunker. It basically it'll fit the most situations. So if you're probably looking at between 70 and 80 of the situations that exist, this is going to work for you out of the box. And part of the demo is I'm actually demonstrating that in the fact of we so far we have been utilizing our own white paper as the example so that when we took this original services and we got a response visually, I liked it. So I was like, I want to stick with this and we're going to grow from there. And so I was like, okay, did the demo. We've done the demo. Dave's done it at least 50 times. I've probably hit 50 times now myself. And so I was like, for this, I want to get something, not only do that, because we followed it through the entire scope and it's like our sniff test. But then I was like, now let's see what we really can do. And that's why I really loved where this system was going. And we'll get to that and I'll show you. Uh, but initially, we're done installing. And so if you come to settings, now you will see you have RAG service controller. And when you drop down, it will expose the options that you have available, the controls that each of the services have. So you can check to see easily if they're running or not running. If you turn them off, like I do right there, it'll take probably a second. And then I go through and it'll just sit there and nope, it's not running anymore. So all I simply have to go through and start it. And if everything follows us through, of course, in testing, it works great. Who knows this time around? You never know. Um, it could be still starting. Sometimes it takes a moment. Let's see. There we go. Yep, it should have started. There we go. Pull that off to the side. Let's do. And of course, watch it not behave on me this time. But oh, let me check the logs. In fact, I can just go ahead and expose that now because so people can see. If you do have issues in real time, which it does happen, if you come down to service control, in this case, I'm messing with that one. We do keep an active log every time it's working. And so it's actually working. It just showed me the health check and everything like that. So I should be able to go here now, and I probably screwed up my own system, didn't I? It says it's already healthy, but the health check might be stuck. Interesting. So as we said, we're still a little testing, and I do not kind of tease anything as far as make sure it's the it is really not checking that. But in the logs it is. So let's go and see how it's really working. Because that'll be where the proof's at. Um, I'm using OpenRouter right now because I love this model for some strange reason, but you do not have to pick it. Down here, I have my llamas. I'm going to go with picking 8B. I've had some pretty good results of that. If you go here, and now we can actually go through and create a collection because we do not have any yet. I'm using T1 just simply as my name and my description. It does auto select for you based on the fact it took it. The health is what's having the issue in the settings. So let's go through, and now I'm going to manage my collection, and I'm going to simply add a document to it. And as I said in our first little demo, we're going through our white paper. It will upload it, then it'll initiate the processing, and it's that quick on that document. It's like 1,200 tokens, I think, in size. So it goes through it rather quickly. And now I can go through and basically do our initial question that we do every time. And if everything works out well, it sends it, there you go. It sends the response out that quick.
That was fast.
Yeah. And that's kind of that for the litmus test of is our system working, because we've been using that document and that question the entire time through. And it allows us to A, is the RAG working as we expected? B, we can test our own models, like between the llama model or let's say I want to go down below and we'll see if my little 8B model is going to behave. I'm going to delete this conversation. And just so you know, if I just hit a new conversation, it still keeps the RAG selected. So I have to be the one to change it if I don't want to use it because I already had it selected. It just carries through the new conversation. What is BrainDrive? And now the Quinn model is just a little bit slower because it does have a thinking tag. There it is. And you can pretty much see the difference between how two models handle the same data. So that's why I like using the same document, the same question through the entire process. We will get through to what I would call more mathematical evaluations. But from this moment, this is a very good, just a touch and feel test. I can know in 2 seconds whether do I have just a good model, bad model, is the chunking doing what I expected to do, and whatnot. And this is probably the best answer I've seen possible, basic coming of the nature. I did have fun with that first model I picked from. What was it? This one, the free one here. It actually gives you links. One of the links is wrong. It's actually the Allen AI link, but I just thought it was kind of funny. And for community link, it gave BrainDrive.ai. I just thought it was interesting how the model was already trying to put links into the conversation. So if the chunks had provided it does make me wonder what would have been. And we'll get into that chunk management in the future because that's going to be a very important system, important part of RAG itself going forward.
Great, but we now have the foundation of BrainDrive is set. This was the last piece of the foundation that we set out to build.
For me, though, it wasn't done because it was like we've done the same thing, and it's like as every time I play, I want to see what it really can do. We've used Markdown the whole time. And as with any RAG, it has to be able to handle PDFs
Yeah.
because it's like even like on my system when I was like, I want to try something different. And I was like, okay, what? I have so much gaming material in PDFs. And I was like, well, I get tired of doing that, even though I like that kind of material. But I wanted to find something different. I asked my wife, who writes content all the time at the C-suite level, and I was like, hey, do you have anything that would be pertinent for what we're trying to do? And she was like, hey, perfect. Here's the studies that we use. Um, Almost every document coming out, we're dealing with AI. It's 26 pages. And I thought that was a pretty good test run because it's like a lot of people are going to be hitting those kind of information. So we will follow suit. We will create a new collection. There we go. Already selected. I'm going to manage it, upload it really quick. Um, wherever they go. Now this does take it, if I recall in my testing, probably about 1 minute and 15 seconds and 1 minute and 30 seconds to go through all 26 pages of it. It has some images, a lot of charts though, because it is a business document of sorts and is dealing with AI or Gen AI, especially in the 2025. And like I said, she does a lot of C-suite, so this is like really higher level, not technical. So I thought it was probably a pretty good art. Pretty, see, it's already done. And so that's how fast it chews through
And
the
this is
20.
all locally running on your computers, right?
Yes, yes, this is going nowhere. Even the document is down on my side. This doesn't get outside of my computer. So I'm happy now. It loaded it up. I'm going to go ahead and create a. Uh, there we go. And let's see. What is the chance? Gen AI in 2025.
Less if you're using BrainDrive.
There you go. Yeah, but I tried to figure out some questions, and that's why I taught had to count. Like I said, for me, it was like I didn't have to coach anything through it, and this just went through and ate the document up. And my wife's been reading this, doing content based off of it, and stuff like that. So I had her come in, check out the answers to make sure they pass and all like that, and she was happy with it. Like I said, this was a very high level in testing, but I was really happy with what I seen coming out of it. As far as it's like it even go even grainer. Like a good example, shadow AI. It was like first time I really seen the term used because I don't do much content of this level and all like that. So I was like, hey, let's go ahead and ask it. And exactly. This was like if you, and this is where it started my imagination. It was like you can start, suddenly it's like with a few little guardrails in place, it's like you could feed it a bunch of documents and you could just generate content or dive for information without, because I wouldn't want to read 26 of this pages. I just did the first page and I was like, I'm bored already. It
Right,
was, it was like
right,
that dull and boring. Um, but it was like really easy to start chewing through it. It's like you'd see captions or statements that make you go, hmm, and you can simply re-ask it and get an answer of that based on how it was using the term.
right.
Uh, yeah, so I was kind of very impressed to see what it did of off the cuff. I'm going to hand you a document. What are you going to do with this? And getting and seeing the results and all like that. And it's like it gets your wheels turning of what's possible next. Because this is just a hey, I'm throwing documents and I'm just having a conversation. But what if you tried to build a plugin that was like, hey, we're going to have a knowledge base predetermined. Here's what it is. It could be just Gen AI. It could be recipes. It could be who knows what. And you say, hey, give me an idea of using garlic, and it can just start. You fine tune it for recipes. You fine tune it for cooking, or you pick your topic. And that's where I want to get to with this of exposing system prompts and prompts that are used throughout the system so that not only can it just give you general answers, but you could really fine tune this to be whatever you imagine and hyper focus it into that. And I can see a lot of potential. But even
Agreed.
out of the box right now, this is better than anything I've used, and I've used some crap.
Awesome. So you want to take a quick look at the settings and like
Yeah.
what people are going to have access to manage?
Yeah. Now everything is pretty much leveraged. Out of the box, because I have the models already downloaded, I don't have to do anything. The installer will get to the point where we will have models auto select where you can grab them, or it can grab them for you. You can say, "Hey, do I have enough space?" Yes, grab them, and you can be off and going really quickly because you don't need heavy models to do this. Um, you can host it in other locations. You simply take this out and you put in the IP of that location. If you change the ports, you can put that in. All it takes is once you change the information, you save it, you do a stop and start, or you do a restart, and it comes back up for you without you having to drop to the terminal. Um, you can select if you want different kinds of models. Like I said, I have them all, so my defaults all pick. This is normally what I have in here. My embedding provider.
The
Uh,
LLM provider here,
yeah,
what is that doing?
when it comes, there's a certain part of the chunking process and the actual when it figures out when it redoes your prompt to get the chunks, because just asking your direct prompt that I put in doesn't leverage the RAG system itself with the best response. So basically it says, hey, take what is BrainDrive and give me a actual prompt that I can use to get the chunks to help with this response.
Right.
So
So you have the LLM that you're talking to, which you select in the chat
yeah,
interface of the system.
yeah, this is all for providing back the best possible
Right.
chunks.
And
And
then you
then,
have the LLM, which is right. So that's the LLM you're talking
yep,
to, right?
yep,
Now go back to the settings. And then the LLM provider here is
yep,
the LLM that's helping decide what chunks to
yes,
pull from the embeddings database, right?
correct, correct, yes,
Okay. And then the embedding provider is you have to have a model that encodes essentially the chunks into vectors for the ChromaDB embeddings database, all
which,
local.
yep,
This is the model that does that. And what
yep.
model do we usually set for, what model do we recommend
Mine,
for
you're
that?
currently set it
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah, and that's the one that people tend to recommend.
Yep.
Um, okay. And then contextual retrieval, what is that?
This is a second layer of trying to make sure that that your prompt and the chunks that you get are closer aligned, not so much as in a static, like if I misspell a brain drive, sometimes that will catch you, but this is where this added layer goes in and says, okay, you want to talk about brain drive, and let me tell you, if you put in what is brain drive on an app that doesn't have any documents, it'll tell you about a note-taking app. So these are the things that hyper focuses that we're talking about BrainDrive in the RAG system and looking for the information out of there and not wandering off
Okay.
the
And
reservation.
how does that differ from the LLM provider?
Uh, they attack it basically from two different standpoints. The first one is basically coming in from a prompt level of it's going to cue in and it's going to massage your prompt and turn it into something that it can use better. And then this is making sure that you are dealing with not something hard coded like to just misspell a word or how a word is spelled, but rather attacking it from context. What are you talking about? Are you talking about apple pie, or Apple as in the phone maker?
Okay.
That helps separate those distinctions right there, so that if you have both apple pie and Apple products, but you're asking an Apple product question, you're not going to find out how grandma made her recipes, that kind of stuff.
Got it.
Um, And then evaluation, we do not have turned on yet. As far as for playing with it, it's just here because it is going to be coming. The previous system where we're coming from, we did have the start work on a evaluator, so it's there. I just haven't tied into it yet with the additional plugin features.
Okay,
Yeah. And then
cool.
Yep, and then the processing, of course, this has nothing yet, except for it allows you to change where it's located at, the ports and all like that. And then if it's exposed to the internet, you can start putting in some security here and some authorization and how cores will be handled. Eventually, what'll go here is also like the size of the chunks. What type of method do you want to use for chunking and stuff like that? So when we start expanding on this, this will give you a lot of room to play. Right now it's set for, I believe, 2,000 tokens. Probably has an overlap of about 200 to give it a little give and take. So it's kind of, but it works for really good generally. You just throw a document at it and you see by the results. It's like, hey, I didn't cookie cut any document yet or saying, hey, make sure this is the best results. I was like, I want to hand you something blindly and let's see what you can really do. Um, so it's pretty happy.
Awesome. And what do we need to do? What's left to do to get this up on GitHub so people can play around with it?
Right now, this has been tested and proven on Linux and Ubuntu.
Okay.
This week comes with moving. I will do two things at once. I will test the installer on Windows, and I mean, I've already played with it, but it's been a few weeks. I want to get back into the installers because that's part of our real push coming up next, and then follow right into that with I'm going to install you with the installer, and then I'm going to put the link in for the RAG system to install that. And I know it's going to happen, even though I tried to make it not. It's going to blow up on some dependencies when it's installing the RAG system. I'm going to clean them up. And so that the wet Windows installer and the Windows installer for RAG will both get checked off at the same time. Then you can install it on your stuff. And then I will move into Mac and I'll do the same thing. I know we caught our little issue on the Mac installer, so that's when I'll clean that up, and then we will, of course, clean up. Then we'll get let's install on the Mac, and then install the RAG on the Mac and handle the dependency issues. Between me and the AI, I've tried to anticipate what's necessary for Windows, what's necessary for Mac, so at least the code's in place and the first guess of what's needed in place. But the truth is, you don't know these things until you start installing, and then it'll be no bozo. You can't use that version with this, and then okay, now let's get the right version in there. And when I did it for Linux. I think it took me an hour for the processor and probably closer to an hour and a half for the chat to convert them over out of Docker into a VNV environment. So, yeah, like I said, a few hours I figure for each one, and then clean up the Mac installer for whatever's causing that issue, and then we're good to take to the next step of let other people play with it. Um, Let us play with it at different levels and then start looking at, of course, auto downloading of models or those kind of things make you aware. You're going to need these models to download first before it blows up on your face. And then comes the list of things that I've already seen. Good example when I get to here. If I didn't have it installed right now, this is completely still available. It doesn't say like disabled or anything like that. I need to figure out that communication handshake between services and a plugin so it can actually check, do you have what I need? And I don't want to hard code that into our RAG system because of how we've tried to be. I want the availability for somebody to say, I want to do my own RAG system. And it'll work with this plugin. So I'm trying to figure out that communication method that's necessary from the back end to say, hey, do you have a RAG system for me to use? And for it to say, you know what, I do have one. Here you go. And then it'll turn on and it'll let you do all your stuff. But so I might just do a quick and dirty and like you say, get the first results. It's working the way it should. And then just expand to it. But I really want to take a look what's going on right there. And so I can at least mentally think of that plan of how it's really going to be done. Um, That's about it right there. Otherwise, this thing works. I can't break it. I've tried throwing some weird stuff at it, and I'm pretty happy with every time how it's behaved. I have a little nuance with the health for some reason, not catching. I don't know if that's. I just have a few timers for. That's what I was doing this weekend because it was like always sit when I did a health check, it would just sit up there. I have it vanishing. I wonder if I have a little runoff of that, but I'll clean that up this week. That'll be a piece of cake. But yeah, installers and installing in general of through the Windows and the Mac. That's the only thing left right there.
Okay, and we have obviously Christmas coming up this week. So when do we think we'll have that stuff done that you want to?
I want to before Christmas. I want to have Windows done. I see no reason. The Mac is the one I'm going to pause. That probably not because of the fact that hey, I'm just going by my Mac skills, not by anything other than that. Because I have to figure out what's wrong with the Mac installer from when we played with it.
Right.
That has that extra challenge right there. But from a standpoint of the Windows, I know the installer already works because we've used it. So it's just a matter of getting the Windows dependency. I will probably work in reverse on the Mac. I will first tackle the dependencies. So the RAG will be working so that you could play with it on the way on the Mac side, and then I will start working on the installer side and figure out because that's probably going to take longer than the dependency because the dependency is just code,
Got it.
and I'm much more comfortable in that.
All
um,
right, cool. Excuse me. Sorry, a little sick today.
yeah,
Other stuff you want to discuss around this or anything else?
I me personally, it's like I'm really this is like a generic RAG system, and I've seen so many bad. I've never played with one that I was like, okay, I like what I'm starting to see. What's possible? And
Right.
like I said, that really it's like if you and I know a lot of people are, if you're building content, and it doesn't matter what type, shape, or form, but I can see a plugin being developed where where it has your guardrails so that this plugin is not like we're a general chat or and I want to say something. I threw the same document at OpenAI and I got the same level responses that I got on the Quinn model. So it's like there is no trade-off between the two projects or this, and I got the same results. I didn't have to be on the internet
Right.
for that thing. But for me, it's like if you had a plugin that was developed for I'm going to write content, and that plugin's basis is you're going to give it documents to feed off of, so it knows the topic or the knowledge base that your content's based off. I could easily see, hey, give me a topic. Here's an out. It goes through, finds the chunks that it wants to use for your topic. From that, it builds an outline, shows it to you. Are you happy with this? And then you say, yep, let's go to the next step. The next step, it starts filling in descriptions. Are you happy with that direction going? And yes or no, or changes like that. Boom, go to the next step. It's like this thing would make doing content a breeze.
Right.
All you have to do is fit in, is like fill in what type of content are you doing? Are you doing a Facebook post? Are you doing a LinkedIn post or article? Are you doing an article for WordPress? It's like the sky's the limit right there.
What I
You know,
want to do, like I'm dealing with, trying to get my parents moved to Orlando and switch doctors and all that. And I really want to have just like a page in BrainDrive with each of their medical histories and
yep.
all the doctor's notes and everything. And anytime a doctor tells us anything, just go in and check and, make sure everything, because, they got 8 different doctors who aren't communicating with each other, and all that. So, yeah, there's a
And
million different use cases
yeah,
for
and
this.
that kind of stuff ties into where we'll probably head up is we'll go into personas because we already talked now that we're done with this foundation of the whole thing, we're going to start improving. So
Yeah,
that is personas, being able to leverage them for more. In other words, you could have a doctor persona for, Dr. Mom, that that's for your doctor and your mother,
yeah,
and it would have a knowledge base tag to it. So the second you go here and you hit personas, it automatically switches the RAG system that you're using. So it goes right to that one so you don't get off centered. I want to see so that you can automatically have a favored model for using that because no doubt when you're dealing with that level, you're going to want particular type of results. And sometimes you want to not be on an open AI where they're logging everything or whatnot because they have to. You want to be on a on or not, you want to be on a local one where you know it's not being logged.
Right.
And it can, hey, it's private information. You don't want anybody knowing your health conditions and stuff like that. Your social security number, your date of birth, all that stuff could filter 2 seconds flat on a chunk. So it's like the ability to let a persona put the guardrails in place so you don't have to worry about, did I remember to set X?
Right.
Those kind of things. And maybe even take personas a step further so that there's a little check marks on personas, never use an API model, so you can guarantee yourself that you're not going to go outside of those guardrails at either. And like I said, and it's not something to prevent you because you can go into personas and change, but those little things to make sure that you don't accidentally make mistakes with your data because they
Right.
happen. I can tell you this because I can't tell you the number of times that I've went into testing and didn't realize I was using some model. Because if you go on my list, there you go. Whatever Google's Gemini 3 Flash is the first one on the list, and if I'm not watching, sometimes I'll get here and go, da up, those kind of things. So the accidents happen. It's not because of on purpose, and that's why it's like little things for it to say, hey, help me don't may have an accident.
Yeah, exactly.
Not restricting you because you can go in and change anything you want, but it's like I'm just a little thing because I don't want to make a mistake there.
Okay, so that leads us into the next big picture topic, unless there's anything else you want to talk about
Nope,
on the RAG system, which
nope, we're
is UX.
yes. Um,
So I think right now, you and I get on a call and we say, what do we want this to look like? And you code it up and we look at it and we like it sometimes and don't like it other times. And sometimes you like something and I don't like something. And this is even before we get building our
yep,
community. Once we have this foundation in place, I mean, we'd love to have people contribute now, but really we're in the final stages of getting this foundation in place. And then my and Dave's goal is to, have more community involvement
yep,
in, these decisions and stuff. So, that this is a long-winded way of saying I think we need to start with a framework of how we think about UX,
yep.
right? And then we start from that as our foundation, and then we can have, I think, more grounded discussions. And that doesn't mean we can't ever work outside of that framework if we
Yeah.
believe that there's a reason to, or that we can never change that framework. We can certainly change it and update it as we learn, et cetera. So as always, I've taken some time to think about this, and I'm putting Dave on the spot.
Yeah. I was worried
So
about the call in my demo and all like
yeah,
that. Dave's like, got
yeah.
something for you.
So
Okay.
this is a brainstorming
Yep.
session, and just like I thought we could just, what in terms of UX, like forgetting about this specific interface
Yep.
for a minute. Just in general, how should we be thinking about UX?
Well, right now, and this I'll use this as an example because this I'll go through the steps of what I did. It's like we mostly pushed by you, but it works because you've been in marketing and people far longer than I have. I look at Claude, I look at OpenAI because at the end of the day, it's like we're all trying to almost do something similar, and that is that initial user interface somebody sees. They have spent far more money, hours, manpower at what UX people need to see. So for me, like I said, when I started at this, I was like, okay, everybody's, and we talked about it, everybody's using a menu system off the input box. So I went with that straight off the bat. The little things like, should I be populating below so that you can just visually instantly see what you've selected? We're probably going to lean in that direction because it's just, hey, one less thing a user has to do. Do I have that checked? They're just going to visually see. So I think for me especially, looking at this is always I'm used to coding where I know my user base. And that's very easy because I can kind of be in their head then and say, okay, this is what's needed to see, and then merge that with the tech aspect. But in this aspect, we could have anybody using this. So it's almost impossible to get in somebody's head what they need to see. So I think from the standpoint of defining what information needs to be readily visible at one time, in other words, on the screen, as in right now, you need to see what model you're using, what persona you're is be using, those kind of things, immediately without having to click anything. And then the tier level is with one click, what information can be available and what goes there. Because at the end of the day, most people that are going to probably be using, especially our initial plugins, will be non-technical users. So there, for what's innate for me to automatically go, okay, this is what I would do first, is not the same thing a non-technical user would do. And in fact, they might be apprehensive with exploring. They might be a little, even though it's on their computer, they own it. They might be gun shy. What happens when I click this?
Yep.
So it's like, and then make sure that every possible conceivable thing has a hover over. So when they accidentally move their mouse over it, they can see that A, this is an interacting point of the screen, and then B, it's okay to click it.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't say this is okay, but if they see, it's like, hey, what information you're currently utilizing for the prompt, so okay, let me see what I'm using then. Instead of it's just highlight or nothing. A good example, what does this do? It should, oh, there you go. We do actually right there where it tells you it scrolls to the bottom. So they know what that button does and they know it's like, oh, okay, I can utilize that feature now.
Yep.
It's, when I come over here, it's like, okay, show the raw markdown information. What's that? Well, it didn't say I can't do it. Let's find out what that looks like now, and why that's important. And those little things, the little cues on the screen without, I guess, putting more information on the screen, but at the same time displaying that this screen has multiple places for you to work with, and how to work with them. Because at the end of the day, nobody's going to read any documents. It doesn't matter how good they are. It's
Awesome.
so this screen has to be the documentation. Even though it's like we have BrainDrive docs right there. We have the community right there. It's like if with all of that right there at their glimpse, we will still have to be able to put that information anywhere on this screen where they could go through, even on down to here. It's like, hey, this is where you're going to select a model to talk to. you know Persona, this is the personality of the model you're going to talk to. A little, it wouldn't take much to that little extra added value. Kind of like here, this was three dots before that. If it wasn't for the fact that I know that it was there, it was very hard to see, so I changed the icon to something visibly.
And you got that
um,
hover there with
yep,
the com.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like little things that I'm learning even while I'm going along. Because, like I said, these new user base that it's like I'm not used to dealing with. So it's like learning that extra mile that will put this in a better light for anybody using it. And then, of course, we have conversation points. We have this here right now, and it works and such like that. But I realize we're starting to use this now like OpenAI. So do we need less here? Or because if I go to attach, it's going to do the same thing.
Right.
So it's like, where do we get the best value? And, you know, for what the user needs to see and the real estate of the screen.
Yes. Best value for real estate. I'm writing all this down.
Yeah.
For real estate. Okay. All right. There's a ton to dig in here. All right. It's almost like you've thought about this before. Okay. So the first thing you said was, let's look at Claude and ChatGPT. And I think there's 2 points that you made there. The first is, they have giant teams focused probably on user experience. We
Yep.
have me and Dave right now. And they also have giant user bases that they're testing these things with and optimizing for, et cetera. So, maybe not, but more than likely, whatever they've done has been sort of really thought through and battle tested. And so, at the end of the day, the big difference between BrainDrive and those systems from a chat experience, which is the entry experience, is just you own this and you
Yep.
don't own that one. And but what you're looking to accomplish with a chat is likely to be very similar. And so let's piggyback off of all of the work that those companies have done, number one, and not try and reinvent because we don't have those resources.
That should
Now,
always be the start right there.
now,
Whatever they're doing to start. Now, if we find a reason it doesn't fit for one because it's not good for local, if it's not
exactly.
good for where we know we're heading, then we have a
It takes
reason.
ownership away, it violates one of our
Yep,
pillars, all that. But the other point that I think you're making is, because it's going to be unlikely that people are coming to BrainDrive as their initial AI experience. I think most people are going to be starting with a ChatGPT or a Claude and then say, hey, I really don't want to be feeding all my information to these guys, and they're going to do big tech things to piss people off. And then people are going to come to BrainDrive. So, they're going to be more familiar with, ChatGPT number one
yep,
and then Claude number two. And so if there's not a reason to invent a new way of doing it, right, then
yep.
we should just default to how they do it because that's how people are used to doing it.
Yeah, it's like if the default is going to be Google, maybe Perplexity, but OpenAI, because
Yeah.
those three offer a free user come play with me. Claude does
Mhm.
not offer a free user come play.
Oh yeah, they do.
Oh, they
Claude,
do?
Claude
Okay.
has the free version too.
Okay, yeah, I didn't. I played with Claude a few times, but not too much. But I know the
Yeah.
other one's guaranteed to there.
Right.
For
But
some
and
reason,
and
every
so
time
I
I mess
would
with
say also if all three of those, and really I think it's, ChatGPT, but
yeah,
if ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude all do something a certain way, then that
yeah,
kind of is de facto the default way of doing it, right? Um, so so that's I think number one of what you said.
yep,
Okay. The second thing you said is one less thing a user has to do. And I
yep,
think, what I would say back to that, to put some more words to that, is, um, you know, if we can make it so a user does not have to do something and it just works,
yep,
then why not do that? So, an example in the future, maybe you talked about it with this RAG system, having the models pre-selected for the
yep,
user and pre-downloaded, right? It's just this is our default setup. You have the freedom to change and modify it however you want, but like you don't have to set it
yep,
up from scratch the first time. I love that. Um, and I think, know your user base, right?
yep,
And I think there's a couple points that you made there, throughout this is, we want anyone to be able to use BrainDrive. We want the non-technical user to be able to use BrainDrive, but we also want the technical
yep.
user to be able to use BrainDrive and be excited to build and modify it, etc. And so these are kind of opposing audiences, right? And how to think about that, right? But I think, and you made this point that the technical user is going to be more willing to dig and play than the
Yep,
non-technical user. So we want to kind of the default experience to be for the non-technical user, and then we can have the ability behind a settings icon or a tab, etc., for the next level of
yep,
functionality behind that. So love that. Um, so, another thing you said was whenever possible, you need to know what something does or how to do something without having to click.
yep,
So I think that that's good. And this feeds into what we just talked about, the tier level, right? So you have the like base UX, the default user experience for the non-technical user right up front. And then you have the tiers, which is the more complex it gets, the further you go down into the
yep,
system to do that. And that's kind of abstracting away some of the complexity as well. Um, and The hover you
yeah,
mentioned,
yep.
so having like making people comfortable that they can click something and they know what it's going to do, right?
Well, because
I
a
would
lot of
put
people on computers, if you're non-technical, that fear is if it breaks, I can't fix it. So they
yeah.
don't do anything.
Yeah, right. So having that hover is a big deal. Another point you made is all the things that are on this right now, I would say this screen, especially the AI chat interface, does not feel overwhelming. and it's clear where I can click and kind of what's going to happen. So the plus sign, the markdown, the settings icon, start a new chat, all of that. It's clear those things are clickable,
Yep.
So I don't know how you've done that, but sometimes there'll be things like that that it's not clear that it's clickable. All these things to me, it's clear that they're clickable. And another thing I would say is, again, going back to default experiences, if there's a default, like the settings icon is used for settings, then we
Yeah.
use that and we don't try to, like, we don't put like a brain there or something like
Yeah.
that to try and, like, be cute with the brand or whatever. Like, we just want to use whatever the um, default experience. Um, Quick on the screen. I'm not sure what that one is. I wrote down. Yeah, not sure what that is. Okay, the other thing is no one reads docs,
Yep.
right? So, especially the non-technical user, if they have to read a document, we've lost them, you know. And then the best value for real estate, I love that as
Yep.
like a heuristic of like, how can we get the most value possible from this real estate without cluttering and confusing people? Um, so I read a book on UX. I think it's fairly famous, and I love the title of it as an overarching theme to what we said. The title of the book is "Don't Make Me Think."
Yeah. It really comes down to that. If you have to make a user think at this screen, they're
Yeah,
done.
right. So, I like that as an overall, like, don't make me think, number one. And then number two is the defaults. Like,
Yep.
we always default to the default, but that doesn't mean, if there's a reason
Yep.
with what we're trying to do, I think that your pages is a great example of this, is we really want to give people, unlimited flexibility and freedom to build the interfaces that they want to build. And so the pages concept is unique to BrainDrive, at least right now.
Yep.
And I think that that's a good example of where we've moved way away from what the default experience is, but there's a good reason for that,
But
right?
and going in reverse, if anybody has been following us or you watched the previous videos, this chat experience was at one time broken down into three modules.
Yeah.
And that was the initial. And that's me being me. I code way in advance and I get fancy and I get too fancy sometimes. And I realized as soon as we started playing with it and talking with it, I was like, this is the worst example of a first touch for a user. And that's why I was like, let me redo this. And this is where this screen came out with one plugin. It's on one page. It's hyper focused. We control it all. I'm not worried about trying to do too many examples at once. I can do system or the service bridge examples to do that. And this was more of a, hey, we're going to do this right. And so sometimes we have to back up and make sure we do get it right.
Right. Right. Awesome. I think that's I can take that and put this call into the AI, and I think give us a really good draft to go over of, how we think about UX going forward from a framework
Yeah,
standpoint.
because like on this screen, it's like I know I'm in the middle of because we're in the middle of a conversation of how we're going to work with this bar up here. I've already started working with the responsiveness of it, but it's like, do we need this here? Do we if we're do we just go like everybody else and put new chat here? It's like, and I got to admit, history. Yeah, it's like I'm almost tempted. I want this based on the screen to be more responsive in the fact of I have a lot of dead real estate on my desktop if I'm using this. I
Yeah.
might want the automatically for if it has the real estate, I want my line of history here.
Right.
That kind of thing. And then if the screen gets shorter, it pops the drop down up here, comes visible, this vanishes, those kind of things. It's like leverage the more real estate that's available.
Right.
And this is, hey, us getting smarter as we do and seeing what we can pull off.
Yep. All right, great. I think that's good for today, unless there's anything else you want to talk about.
Nope. Ragged installers.
All right, very good. And I'm working on a course on how to run or how to choose a computer for your local AI system. So I've got enough work to do on that I don't need the RAG system quite yet. And when it's ready, I can finish up the how to run AI on your computer course with RAG and everything included in it, and installers and everything. So we'll be in good shape there. And with that, we'll call it. We do these calls every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, and we post the recordings over on our community forums at community.braindrive.ai in the afternoon once everything's done processing. So we'd love it if you join us here for these calls or live or over on the forums at community.braindrive.ai. Our mission here at BrainDrive is to build a superior user-owned alternative to big tech AI systems. We'll see you next week.